All right, so today we're going to really dive deep into something specific, and that is how to get those product listing websites of yours, NameNP.shop, Vardanon.shop, all those to really stand out online, and more importantly, get more local customers walking through the doors of your actual stores.
Yeah, because ultimately, it's all about driving those sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And local SEO, that's the key we're going to unlock today. It's become absolutely crucial for businesses like yours to really tap into that local market.
It really has. Those near me searches everyone's talking about, they haven't just grown, they've exploded, a 900% increase. Can you believe that? And think about it. 76% of those folks searching locally actually visit a business that same day.
Within the same day, yeah.
Yeah.
And even more impressive, 28% of those people are making a purchase within 24 hours. We're not making this up. This is straight from Insivia's local marketing research.
So this isn't just theory. This is about getting real, tangible results for your business.
Exactly. Now, to get to those results, we've been digging through some really interesting material. We've got a comprehensive local SEO guide that's packed with advice on building your website authority and, of course, attracting more in-store customers. Then there's a strategic roadmap that combines, classic SEO techniques with some fresh, outside-the-box thinking.
And to really make it specific to you, we've also got a technical SEO assessment that's been done on your 5 websites.
Exactly. We've got all the data. And what we're going to do in this deep dive is break all of that down into clear, actionable steps you can take. We're talking about things like improving the technical setup of your websites, making sure your pages are optimized for local searches, having a content strategy that speaks directly to your local audience.
Oh, and let's not forget structured data. That's a big one. And of course, your Google business profile, citations, backlinks, even how to get those pages indexed faster by Google. All of this tailored specifically to your product listing websites.
That's the key, making it work for your business. So let's jump right in, shall we? First things first, we've got to get those foundational elements rock solid. We're talking technical SEO, the nuts and bolts of your websites. And at the top of the list, we've got indexation and crawlability.
Right, because before you can even think about ranking and search results, Google needs to be able to actually find and understand all those important pages on your sites. Like, can Google's robots even get into your digital store and see what you're offering?
Exactly. Now, the good news is the technical assessment we looked at shows you're off to a good start. It found that each of your sites has a correctly configured robots.txt file and a working XML sitemap. Those are both really positive signs.
Those are the basics, definitely. But there's always more to do, right?
Absolutely. The next step is to do a little manual check. You want to see what Google is actually seeing. For each of your domains, NameNP.shop, Vardanon.shop, and the others, go to Google and type in site, followed by your domain name.
So like site.namenp.shop. That's a really simple way to see which pages are actually indexed, right?
Exactly. And if the number of pages that show up is way less than the total number of product and store pages you actually have, then that's a sign that something might be off, and you need to dig a little deeper to figure out why Google isn't seeing those pages.
Got it. So you need to know what Google can even see before you can start working on getting those pages to rank higher.
Precisely. And speaking of ranking, another thing those SEO guides really emphasized was having a clear and unique URL structure for every single page on your sites.
Makes sense. Like giving each page a unique address that Google can easily understand.
Right. And they even went a step further, suggesting that you might want to think about adding the location or maybe a specific store ID right there in the web address itself. So, for example, something like vardanon.shoptel-aviv product name or gru eritzzu.shabatat food brand name. You see how it immediately tells Google, hey, this page is about this specific product in this specific location.
It's like a super clear signpost for Google, right? No more guessing games.
Exactly. And don't forget about internal linking. That's how all your pages connect to each other. Make sure your product pages link to their relevant categories, your store location pages link to their specific products, and so on. This helps Google's crawlers, those little digital spiders, easily navigate your site and discover every nook and cranny. It's like creating a well-organized map for Google right there within your own website.
All right, that makes sense. Now let's talk about your XML sitemaps. It's great that you've already got those set up, but it's not just a set it and forget it kind of thing, is it?
You got it. It's definitely a good first step, but the real magic happens when you keep those sitemaps updated and make sure Google knows about them. You want to submit those sitemaps to Google Search Console, and it's super important to update them whenever you add new store locations or new product pages. In fact, the ideal scenario is to automate this process. So every time something changes on your site, Google gets the memo right away.
So Google's always in the loop. That way, potential customers can find your new stuff as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Now, moving on to how your sites actually perform for the people who visit them. Mobile optimization and page speed. That's non-negotiable these days. People are impatient. They want things to load quickly, especially on their phones.
Absolutely. No one's waiting around for a slow website in 2023.
Right. And the good news is that technical assessments show that your page speed and those core web vitals, those are Google's benchmarks for a good user experience.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty good overall. That's a big plus because it means you're already ahead of the curve.
That's a relief. But still, it's something you gotta keep an eye on, right? Can't just assume it'll stay that way forever.
You're absolutely right. We strongly recommend using Google PageSpeed Insights regularly to track how your sites are performing, especially on mobile. There's always room for improvement. For example, make sure all your images are optimized. Make those file sizes as small as possible without compromising quality. And look into browser caching. That helps speed things up for people who visited your site before.
So it's about being proactive and making sure your site stays fast and user-friendly for everyone on any device.
Exactly. Google loves that. Now let's switch gears and talk about something that might seem really basic, but it's absolutely essential for local businesses, your NAP consistency.
NAP, that's name, address, and phone number, right? Seems simple enough.
It does, but you'd be surprised how often this gets messed up. You need to make absolutely sure that your business name, your full physical address, and your main phone number are displayed exactly the same way, no variations whatsoever on every single one of your store pages.
And when you say exactly the same way, you mean it, right? Down to every comma and period.
I mean it.
Yeah.
And make sure it's crawlable HTML text too, not just part of an image. Google needs to be able to read it. Put it in prominent places like your website's header, your footer, and definitely on each individual store location page.
So why is this so important? It seems like such a small detail.
It might seem small, but trust me, it's huge. Consistent NAP information helps Google connect the dots between your website and your actual physical store locations. Any inconsistencies, even tiny ones, can confuse both Google and your potential customers.
Google might think they're two different businesses, and then you're in trouble.
Exactly. You don't want that. Okay, now think about your overall site structure, especially with multiple stores that might be selling similar products. Organization is key here.
Right, because you want to make it super easy for both Google and your customers to find what they're looking for.
Exactly. You want to create a clear and logical structure, especially since you have multiple physical locations. Think about having dedicated sections or sets of pages for each store on each of your websites. This not only helps users navigate to the right store's information, but it also tells Google how your business is structured geographically. Now, here's the thing. The assessment we looked at pointed out that you've got lots of semi-duplicate pages.
Uh-oh, not good.
Well, it's a common issue, especially for businesses with multiple locations. The key is to make each of those pages unique by adding locally focused content, even if some of the product information stays the same.
So what kind of unique content are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Think about the things that make each location stand out. Mention nearby landmarks, things people might recognize. Talk about your store's involvement in local events or charities. Maybe have an FAQ section specific to that location, like, does the Tel Aviv store offer same-day delivery? Even little tips or recommendations from your staff at that particular store, things that would be helpful to customers in that area.
That's really smart. It adds real value for users and shows Google that these pages are unique and relevant to their specific location.
Exactly. Now, if you absolutely can't avoid having some duplicate content, for instance, if you have the exact same product descriptions across different locations, you might consider using canonical tags. Those basically tell Google, hey, this is the main version of this page, focus on this one.
But even then, it's always better to try and tailor the content as much as possible, right?
Right. Ideally, you want every page to have its own unique flavor. Okay, another thing that came up in the assessment was the use of 301 redirects.
Redirects, those are when you click a link and it takes you to a different page than the one you originally clicked, right?
That's right. And the assessment specifically advised that for new sites like yours, it's generally best to avoid linking internally to pages that then redirect to another URL. Instead, update those internal links so they point directly to the final correct destination.
So cut out the middleman, essentially.
Exactly. The fewer redirects, the better. It keeps things cleaner and more efficient for both Google and your users. Now let's shift gears and talk about something your users actually see in those search results, those all-important meta tags.
You mean the title tag and the meta description, those little snippets of text that show up under the blue link in Google?
Those are the ones. And Google pays a lot of attention to them, so you want to make them count. For every local store page and every product page, make sure those meta tags are unique, compelling, and that they include relevant keywords and the specific location. So for example, instead of a generic title like running shoes, try something like buy running shoes in Tel Aviv, your store name.
That immediately tells people what they're getting and where they can get it.
Right. And for the meta description, you want something that encourages people to click. Something like find the best running shoes at your store name in Tel Aviv. Browse online, or visit our store today. You see how that's way more enticing than just a boring description of the product?
It definitely paints a picture and makes me want to click.
Exactly. Now remember those structured URLs we talked about earlier? Adding the location right there in the web address itself, like vardanon.shop Tel Aviv product name, or zoo, Eretz zoo, .shopata tikva dog food brand name. That's another super strong signal to Google about the geographic focus of each page.
So it's not just about the content on the page, it's about how that page is structured and organized within your website.
You got it. It's all about giving Google those clear signals. And while we're talking about location, don't forget to sprinkle those local keywords naturally throughout your actual content as well.
You mean using city and neighborhood names in the product descriptions, page headings, even the alt text for images.
Exactly. Weave those local terms in smoothly and naturally. Don't just cram them in unnaturally. That's what we call keyword stuffing, and Google's not a fan of that. Just use those location words in a way that feels natural and helpful to your readers.
Got it. It's all about balance. Okay, last but not least in this section, let's talk about canonical tags.
Ah, yes, those little tags that can make a big difference. The assessment we looked at found some instances where canonical tags were missing altogether, and even worse, some pages had multiple canonical tags. That's a big no-no.
So what's the right way to use these things?
Each page should have one and only one clear canonical tag. And that tag should point to the preferred version of that URL. Think of it like saying to Google, hey, this is the original, the one you should pay attention to. This is super important for preventing duplicate content issues, which can really hurt your rankings.
So one page, one canonical tag, pointing to the right version. Got it.
Exactly. Now, the assessment specifically pointed out issues with pagination. Remember those page one URLs we talked about? And also with sorting parameters. That's when people sort products by price, popularity, or whatever.
Right, like when you see those options on an e-commerce site.
Right. So currently, your paginated pages are set as no index, meaning Google's not supposed to index them. And they have a canonical tag pointing back to the main non-paginated page. But Google actually recommends making those paginated pages indexable and giving them a self-referencing canonical tag. That means the canonical tag on page 2 of your product listing should point to page 2 itself.
Okay, that's a bit technical, but it sounds like it's all about making sure Google understands the structure of your website correctly.
You got it. Now, for those parameterized URLs, the ones with all those extra bits after a question mark, like https.yourshop.com.orderbypopularity, they should generally use a canonical tag that points back to the clean, basic version of the URL without all those parameters. The way it's set up now, with the canonical tag including the sorting parameter, that's actually incorrect.
So that's another one to fix. It's all about making sure Google sees your website the way you want it to be seen.
Exactly. All right, we've laid a solid technical foundation. Now, let's shift gears and talk about how to really make your content shine for local customers. That's on-page SEO optimization and local content strategy.
This is where we get to the heart of connecting with your community, right? Making your website feel like it's truly a part of the local scene.
You got it. And a great way to do that is to pack your store location pages with unique store-specific information. Don't just stick to the basics like address and opening hours. Go beyond that. Talk about what makes each location special.
So like nearby landmarks, local events, even things like parking information. Make it super useful for people who are actually thinking about visiting your store.
Exactly. You can even mention things like our city name location often sees a high demand for a specific product during the winter months. That kind of local insight is really helpful for people.
It makes them feel like you understand their needs in their local area.
Right. Now, FAQs, frequently asked questions, those are another fantastic way to provide localized value.
Oh yeah, those are super helpful. They save people a lot of time and hassle.
Absolutely. And they can be tailored to each specific location. So on your Tel Aviv store page, you might have an FAQ about delivery options in Tel Aviv. On your Petah Tikva page, you'd have FAQs relevant to Petah Tikva and so on.
So think about the questions people in each area are most likely to ask.
Right. And don't forget to use FAQ schema markup. That's code you add to your website that tells Google, hey, these are frequently asked questions. and it can help those FAQs show up directly in the search results as rich snippets.
Which means more visibility and more clicks.
Exactly. Now, let's not forget about images. They can be just as important as words when it comes to attracting local customers.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
That's the idea. Use high-quality, enticing images of your stores, your products, everything. And when you upload those images, use descriptive alt text that includes the city. So instead of just sofa, use something like modern leather sofa on display at our Tel Aviv showroom.
So it's not just about describing the image for people who can't see it. It's also about reinforcing that local connection for Google.
Precisely. And speaking of images, the assessment mentioned that some of your product images are a bit fuzzy or low quality.
Oh, that's not good. Blurry images can really turn people off.
They sure can. It might be worth doing a manual review of all your product images and maybe even using a service like Mechanical Turk to get a broader assessment. You want those images to look sharp and professional.
Because high-quality visuals build trust and make people more likely to buy.
Absolutely. Okay, another thing that came up in the assessment was the lack of text content on your individual product pages.
Oh, that's interesting. You'd think product descriptions would be super important.
You'd think so, right? But when those pages have very little text, it makes it harder for them to rank well in the search results. Google often prefers to rank category pages instead because they tend to have more information.
So what's the solution? Should we just add a ton of text to every product page?
Not necessarily. The assessment actually recommended focusing on linking to product categories from your individual store pages and using optimized anchor text that includes the relevant category keyword. So instead of linking directly to a random selection of products, link to the category page for those products.
And make those links enticing, right?
Exactly. Use clear and compelling anchor text. Now, if you do decide to keep product lists on your store pages, the assessment strongly suggested changing the default sort order to popularity or best selling. That way, your most sought-after products are front and center.
Makes sense. Put your best foot forward. And while we're on the topic of product pages, the assessment also mentions some broken related products, carousel images.
Oh yeah, those are those little image sliders that often show related products. Make sure those are working properly. Broken images can really hurt the user experience.
It looks unprofessional and makes people think your site isn't well maintained.
Exactly. All right, so it sounds like optimizing those category pages should be a top priority.
Yes, because people often start their search with a general category in mind before they drill down to a specific product.
Right, so make sure you have dedicated, well-optimized pages for each of your main product categories. And it's perfectly fine for the same product to appear in multiple relevant categories. In fact, it can even be helpful.
So if you sell dog food, it could be in both the dog food category and the pet supplies category.
Exactly. Now here's a little tip to make those category pages even more user-friendly. Consider showing the current open-close status of each store and the real-time inventory status, whether a product is in stock or out of stock, right there on the product cards within the category listing.
Oh, that's a great idea. It saves people from clicking on a product only to find out it's not available at their local store.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing frustration and making the shopping experience as smooth as possible. Now, to really drive those in-store visits, you need clear and enticing calls to action on your website.
Those are the buttons and phrases that tell people what to do next, right? Like, buy now or visit our store.
Those are the ones. But for local businesses, you want to be even more specific. Use phrases like reserve online, pick up in-store at our city name location, or check in-store availability at your store name.
And prominent get directions buttons that link directly to Google Maps?
Yes. And make sure those phone numbers are clickable, especially for mobile users, so they can easily tap to call.
It's about making it as easy as possible for people to take that next step and actually visit your store.
You got it. Now let's talk about the power of social proof, specifically customer reviews and testimonials.
Those can be really influential, especially at the local level. People trust what other people say more than what a business says about itself.
Exactly. So showcase those local reviews and testimonials right there on your individual store pages. Always get permission first, of course. Positive feedback that specifically mentions the products or the service at a particular location can be super powerful.
It's like a personal recommendation from someone they might even know.
Right. Now, while Google reviews are important for your overall ranking, those reviews you feature on your site provide unique content. Just be sure to avoid simply copying and pasting all your Google reviews. That's not really adding anything new. Maybe choose a few great ones or create a summary of common positive feedback.
So curate those reviews, make them relevant to the specific store page.
Exactly.
Mm.
Oh, and one more thing on reviews. The assessment pointed out that your product pages are missing customer ratings and reviews, and that you're also missing the aggregator rating schema markup.
So people can't see how well rated your products are, and Google doesn't know about those ratings either.
Right. You definitely need to fix that. Having those star ratings displayed in search results can be a game changer.
People are more likely to click on a product with lots of positive reviews.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on from the content itself and talk about how to make that content even more understandable to Google. That's where structured data or schema markup comes in.
Schema markup. It's like adding little labels to your content that tell Google exactly what it is.
That's a great way to put it. And one of the most important schema types for you is local business schema. You need to implement this on every single one of your store location pages.
Because it tells Google all the vital details about your business at each location.
Exactly. Things like your full address, phone number, opening hours, even your exact geographic coordinates. And crucially, you can also include a direct link to your Google business profile within the schema markup.
So Google can connect all the dots and see the full picture.
Right. And to make sure you've done everything correctly, use Google's rich results test to validate your schema markup. It'll tell you if there are any errors you need to fix.
It's like a quality control check for your structured data.
Exactly. Now, for those product pages, you'll want to use product schema. This helps you highlight key product details right there in the search results.
So things like the product name, the price, whether it's in stock, and those all-important star ratings.
Exactly. When it's set up correctly, this can lead to your product listings showing up as rich snippets in Google, which means they stand out and attract more clicks.
And more clicks hopefully mean more sales.
Right. Make sure you include all the important details within the schema, like the price, the currency, the availability status, and those aggregate ratings. If it's relevant for your products, also include things like the SKU and the item condition.
So Google knows exactly what you're selling and how to show it to people.
Exactly. Now, remember those FAQs we talked about earlier? Those can also benefit from schema markup.
We can mark those up with FAQ schema, right, to make them eligible for those rich snippets.
You got it. And for those all-important star ratings on your product pages, make sure you're using aggregator rating schema.
That's the one that helps those shiny gold stars show up in the search results, right?
That's the one. It's a visual signal that can really influence people's buying decisions. Okay, so we've talked about your website and how to make it super clear for Google. Now let's talk about Google itself, specifically your Google Business Profile, or GBP.
GBP, that's like your online storefront on Google Maps and in those local search results.
Exactly. And it's super important for local businesses like yours. A well-optimized GBP can drive traffic to your website and, more importantly, customers to your physical stores. The first step is to make sure you have a complete and accurate GBP for each of your locations. Fill out every section with detailed information, and make absolutely sure that your business name, address, and phone number are exactly the same as what you have on your website. Consistency is key.
No room for errors there.
Not at all. Now, in that business description section, be sure to mention your core products or services and use relevant location keywords.
So something like your one-stop shop for pet supplies in Tel Aviv.
Exactly. That helps Google understand what your business is about and where you're located. And don't just set it up and forget it. You want to keep your GBP fresh and engaging.
So regular updates, new photos, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Aim to post at least once a week. Share new product arrivals, special promotions, upcoming events, anything that might interest your local customers. And keep those photos coming. Show off your store, your products, your happy customers. A visually appealing GBP is more likely to attract attention.
And it shows Google that you're active and engaged.
Right. Now, customer reviews on GBP, those are huge. They can make or break a business.
People really rely on those reviews to decide whether to trust a business.
They do. So encourage your happy customers to leave reviews. And just as importantly, respond to those reviews, both positive and negative. It shows you care and that you're paying attention.
It also shows Google that you're an active and responsive business, which can help your ranking.
You got it. Okay, remember that relevance, distance, and prominence thing we talked about earlier? That's how Google decides which local businesses to show in search results.
Distance, we can't really control that, but relevance and prominence, we can definitely work on those.
Absolutely. And your GBP plays a big role in both. Relevance is about making sure your GBP accurately and thoroughly describes your business and its connection to the local area. Prominence is about building up your online reputation through reviews, backlinks, and citations.
Citations, those are just mentions of your business name, address, and phone number online, right?
That's right. They don't even have to include a link to your website. The GBP is a big part of that. Make sure your GBP links to your website and vice versa. You can do that by embedding a Google map on your site, for instance.
So it's all connected. The stronger the connection between your website and your GBP, the better.
Exactly. Now, GBP has a bunch of cool features you should be using. If it makes sense for your business, enable the messaging feature so customers can contact you directly. Keep those business hours up to date, especially during holidays or if you have any temporary closures. If you have products that lend themselves to being listed directly on your GBP, make sure those are current and accurate.
And keep an eye out for new features. Google is always adding things.
They are. It's all about staying ahead of the curve. Okay, we've talked about your website, we've talked about GBP. Now let's delve into the world of off-page SEO, specifically backlinks and local citations.
These are the things that happen outside of your own website that can really boost your local SEO.
Exactly. Citations are basically online mentions of your business's name, address, and phone number. Backlinks are actual links from other websites pointing back to your site. Both of these tell Google that you're a legitimate business with a real presence in a specific location.
They're like votes of confidence from the online community.
That's a great way to put it. Now, the first step is to make sure your NAP, that's name, address, and phone number, is consistent across all those online directories and listings. You can use tools like BrightLocal or MozLocal to check this.
Because any inconsistencies can really hurt your ranking.
They can. It confuses both Google and potential customers. So go through those listings, correct any errors, remove any duplicates. You want everything to be clean and consistent.
So where should we be focusing our efforts when it comes to getting listed?
Definitely the big ones like Google Business Profile, Bing Places, Yelp. But don't forget about industry-specific directories and those data aggregators that feed information to lots of smaller directories. And if you're operating in Israel, make sure you're listed on those key local directories like B144, Zap, and easy.co.il.
Those are the sites Israelis use to find local businesses, so it's super important to be there.
Exactly. Now, while any citation is helpful, a citation that includes a link back to your website that's even better, we call those linktations, and they're like gold.
So it's not just about being listed, it's also about getting those valuable backlinks.
Right. Now, beyond just directories, think about other ways to earn local backlinks. Reach out to local news websites or blogs. Maybe pitch a story about your business, your involvement in the community, or some unique products you offer.
A mention in a local news article with a link back to your site, that's great publicity and a great SEO boost.
It is. Also, think about sponsoring local events or organizations. They often list their sponsors on their websites with links.
And connect with local bloggers or influencers who might be interested in reviewing your products or collaborating on some content.
Yes, those links from relevant local sites can be really valuable. And don't be afraid to partner with other nearby businesses that aren't direct competitors. You can cross-promote each other, co-host events, things like that.
It's all about building those local connections, both online and offline.
You got it. Now, when you do get those backlinks, the anchor text, that's the clickable text of the link and the surrounding content on the page, that matters too.
So if a link says best pet store in Tel Aviv, that's way better than just click here.
Exactly. It gives Google more context and helps them understand what your site is about. But don't try to manipulate it too much. Just focus on building natural, relevant links over time.
Quality over quantity, always.
Always. All right, we've covered a lot of ground. Now let's talk about getting those new pages indexed quickly.
Because what's the point of having great content if Google can't find it?
Exactly. We've already talked about submitting your sitemap and using the URL inspection tool in Google Search Console. But there are other things you can do. For example, having a regular schedule of publishing new content can encourage Google to crawl your site more often.
So maybe a blog or a news section where you regularly post updates?
That's a great idea. And whenever you add a new page, link to it from other relevant pages on your site. That internal linking structure is super important. It tells Google, hey, this new page is important. Come check it out.
It's like creating a roadmap for Googlebot.
Exactly. And while social media links don't directly impact your ranking, sharing your new pages on social media can sometimes help Google discover them faster.
It's just another way to get those pages out there and in front of Google.
Right. And lastly, keep an eye on those index coverage and pages reports in Google Search Console. They'll tell you which pages are indexed and if there are any problems.
So we've covered a ton of information about improving your local SEO, But how do you actually know if it's working? What should you be tracking?
Measuring your progress is crucial. One of the most important things to track is your search engine ranking for those local keywords. Things like your product category near me or your store name city.
See where you're showing up in those local search results.
Exactly. You can use tools like Bright Local, SEMrush, or Moz to do this, or even just do some manual checks on Google. And definitely keep an eye on Google Search Console. It's a goldmine of information. Look at those performance reports, see how many impressions, clicks, and click-through rates you're getting for those local searches.
And pay attention to any changes after you implement something new on your website or your GBP.
Right. See what's moving the needle.
Yeah.
Your GBP insights are also super helpful. They show you how many times your profile appeared in searches, what actions people took, even the specific search terms they used.
So you can really see what's resonating with people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about